Welcome to this episode of Talk Commerce. Today I have Matt Putra. He is the managing partner with eightX. Matt, go ahead, do a much better introduction for yourself. Tell us your day-to-day role and one of your passions.
Sounds good, Brent. Thank you so much. So I'm managing partner of eightX, meaning I'm setting the strategy, growth plans, and even doing product innovation for my firm. And we serve e-commerce businesses and consumer goods businesses. Day to day looks like a lot of Claude code right now, working on product, working on innovation. I also have my own clients where we're doing advisory work. Um, Passions, soccer, big soccer family over here. I'm a licensed coach. My oldest and youngest both play. Yeah, I have 4 kids, so obviously they are my everything. My wife, my kids. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good. And what we can geek out over Claude Code if we want to do the whole episode about that. I'm
Sure.
in the trenches daily as well.
Amazing.
Matt, before we get started, though, I do this thing called the Free Joke Project. I'm just going to tell you a joke. You just give me a rating 8 through 13.
I can do that.
And so here we go. My balloon elephant was too big to fit in the backseat of my car, so I popped it in the trunk.
Oh, yeah. Got it. That took me a minute. I will say 11 because you made me think.
All right, good. Yes. A lot of times people say that they go home and then they're like, oh, now I get it.
That I was like, oh shit, I'm not getting it. But no, yeah, I did get there.
Good. Yeah, I
I'm gonna try to
appreciate
make
it.
it.
So tell me, just give us the 10,000 foot view of Matt's life and eightX. Tell us just to get us started on where
Sure.
we're at.
I was in private equity for a number of years, and I was commuting 3 hours a day from home to office and back. And I just sort of got sick of corporate. And I fell into working with consumer goods companies because a friend of mine had an e-com business, asked for some help. I helped him. They made a ton more money. That was really fun for me. And so I just started helping his other friend and this and that. And here we are 6 years later with a firm and partners and things.
That,
And day to day, I would say the last couple of months we've been focused on helping our clients in consumer goods play a strong offense. How do they take market share? How do they show up in the market? How do they get attention? And how do they sell more stuff while trying to keep more profit as well?
Yeah. You mentioned Claude Code, and I've got a great use case. I'm in entrepreneurs organization, and a forum mate of mine has a business where he has a device that goes on your arm. Doesn't matter what it is, but he uses, at the time he used a lot of just ChatGPT to generate designs to give to engineering so they could design a new product. And he said he went from 3 months to less than even a day in some cases, where he could come up with design prototypes and then ship them off to a company to give him an actual real life prototype. Are you seeing in the CPG space, especially in prototyping new packaging and designs and things like that, are you seeing just an acceleration in how fast people can do stuff?
Yes, but not I haven't seen anybody using it for packaging design or product, like physical products yet. So that's super cool. I'm seeing a lot of acceleration in terms of marketing, messaging, A/B testing, quantity and quality of ads. That's where I'm seeing most of it. Better personalization, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the visual part has been a hard road for AI to get past. I mean, it does read your images, and it's starting to get more into actually reading full videos.
Mm-hmm.
The parts that you said, or that you mentioned earlier, the generative stuff where you're doing marketing and especially the A/B testing, how much do you depend on the AI to help you, and how much do you depend on the human to give it some governance?
Well, I would say some of the best executors I work with have been doing crazy numbers, like 500 new ads per week. And one brand in particular was able to scale their spend from 180,000 a week to 350 with no degradation in their acquisition cost, because they're creating so much more creative for Meta to think about and to use. And so like relying heavily there on AI and obviously static ads, right? Now the same people are actively hiring copywriters, and a media buyer and designers, because there is still seems to be room where a good human thinker takes AI that much further.
Yeah, and I again I use it every single day, and I love to have this debate with the pundits who say that AI is going to it's already completely replaced, let's say, the copywriter. And I argue that even the best trained models will slip and just go back to baseline. And I experience that every day. I have a weekly article called Tuesdays with Claude.
Oh,
And,
cool.
you know, I think what happens is that maybe it's good 80% of the time. So
Hmm.
do you trust it for that 20%? If it's 20%, that means 1 out of 5 of your users are getting a subpar experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been actually looking at a very simple activity for me just yesterday was creating an exit intent pop-up on my website. That should be very simple for Claude to just go and figure out. But I will tell you, the copy was garbage. And I even did, and look, like I am very AI forward and I've learned how to make it right well. Nothing I tried worked. I did the whole adversary. What would a person think, and have them score the copy and out at 5. And if it's not good, rewrite it. Like I did the adversarial panel, just because I didn't want to do it. And everything came back not good. And then I finally said, okay, generate like 100 options for me to look at. And I picked the one that I liked. So there are still some cases where it just can't get it done.
Yeah, and do you ever find that it kind of doubles down too on what it's going to tell you? Like, for example, this morning I'm like bar graphs versus a donut like graph, like a circle with a number in the middle. I
Yep.
think people are really going to like the circle ones better with the colors and everything. No, people like the bar graphs. Tell me the data you're basing that on.
Interesting.
I don't have any data. I'm just telling you this is what it is, and they double down on it.
Wow.
I feel like that's where maybe people that don't use it every day are just depending on it, and that's the mistake that I call it a race for mediocrity, like just mundane and not doing anything. Do you find in the paid ad space then that you should always still have sort of your eye on the ball in case something happens?
Well, look, I mean, as AI forward as I am, I have an agency who I pay to write my scripts and tell me what to do. Um, I did try with AI, but I will say my agency's been more effective, and they may use AI. I hope that they do, but I know that the guy is looking at it. So look, we should all be doing as much as we can with it. There is just still that like extra amount. Maybe it's that gap from 80 to 90 where there is meaningful value created, you know?
So you're tell us a little bit about eightX. Is it
Sure.
tell us what you do and how you serve your clients?
Sure. So we are fractional CFOs predominantly. We do bookkeeping, but we're CFOs. We are operations and growth focused CFOs, meaning I don't hire people that have come from Big Four. One of the new partner to our firm owned CPG businesses and was a CFO. Another guy was an engineer, and so on. And so our job is to work alongside CEO, founder, or executive team of an e-commerce company, help them understand their data better, help them make better decisions. Obviously, we do lots of reporting and cash flow planning, but the goal is like you want to go from here to here. We want to help you get there with minimal stress, maximal cash. Yeah, that's short version.
Do you ever find so I did a short term as a CTO, a fractional
Cool.
CTO with a PE owned company, and the CFO focused the EBITDA on the entire company. Like they said, everything is driven by EBITDA. Do you feel like sometimes the CFO in a venture capital or a PE situation may overdo or over communicate to, especially if there's a staff of say 150? Like the
Sure.
person in the warehouse, what are they going to do with the data about how are they going to help their EBITDA, right? Like they probably aren't going to the taco truck at lunch to say, you know what, I'm
Exactly.
going to do this to increase our EBITDA for the company.
Yeah. No, I agree. And our approach is we believe that the founding or executive team should have a very clear view of EBITDA and what the plan is for it, but that we need to look upstream. So the further we go away from the executive core, the more upstream we have to go with the metrics that we provide people. So if it's warehouse, we should be talking about throughput and like time on task or like time and motion studies rather than EBITDA for them, because we can understand how their, like, let's say, packing rate or so on filters through to EBITDA. They typically won't see the link as strongly as we will. So we will go and map metrics that make sense to them, but that we know will correlate to EBITDA later.
As a CFO in that CFO role, and especially as a fractional, you're helping founders or even maybe first purchase PEs
Mm-hmm.
on organizing their data, and hopefully by the time they get purchased, their data is organized. But how do you, as a CFO, help them to like get everything together? And I think the most important thing, probably, if you're looking to get acquired, nobody's going to acquire you if you have all your receipts in a shoebox, as they
Sure.
used to say. If you're dispersed, everything is dispersed over a Google Drive that nobody can understand. How do you help them?
Yeah. We treat the sort of financials and data as sort of hygiene. And so we sort of expect a certain level. If someone's disorganized, we do have a bookkeeping team as well, and we'll get them organized. So we do want to see all transactions in QuickBooks or Xero or whatever tagged with the receipt or invoice, like right in the expense, because that's the best organization you're going to get. Trying to find something in an email 2 years later is very difficult, but if everything is tagged to the transaction, makes life is a lot easier. So in fact, I would say that for me is a big theme of when I want to do bookkeeping or create audit ready books, is that every single transaction has either a detailed note or even a receipt or a analysis tagged to it, so that someone can open the books in 2 years, open a transaction, and know what the person was thinking and why they did what they did. If you can do that, it solves a lot of problems. From there, you have to have some dashboards and scorecards that show to a potential acquirer how it is that you guide the company and how you make decisions. For this, we rely heavily on EOS. Most people will have heard of it if you haven't read the book Traction. But if you follow the basics of EOS, you're going to create enough meeting minutes and so on to sort of show an acquirer that you know how to think and solve problems. But finance accounting is, basic hygiene. You need budgets. You need everything tagged in QuickBooks. If you do that, you'll be fine.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned EOS. I don't have to ask you if you know about it.
Yeah,
I would say EOS was the basis, was the starting point that got us organized to get ready to be acquired, and then finally be acquired when I sold our last company.
amazing.
But one thing that was interesting, you just said, was the minutes that you need to also give to potential. And I think that's a great example of how to use I'm assuming you're saying using the notes out of your L10 meeting
Yes.
and other meetings like that
Yes.
to help purchasers understand the workflow and the cadence of your meetings and what's
Yes.
happening in the company.
Yeah, so I would say this is important for when you're selling for like a multi 8 figures or raising a series B. When you get to those levels, the person who's going to be investing or acquiring has really need to know that your team can function. And there's no better way to do that by showing them that each department and team has their own L10 with issues and resolutions and tracking over time. Like, what better way could there be? Because if you don't do that, how else are you going to prove that all these teams can function without you kind of fixing everything? So we are huge fans of EOS, and especially if you're looking for big multiples or a big raise, this will help you convince the acquirer that your teams can function.
Yeah, Traction, what a great book. And I would recommend everybody to go Gino Wickman Traction. It's my default book that I tell everybody to read, and I have it in audio and print and digitals just so I can take notes in it. I know I was reading, just a little bit of your background. You helped close 2 large exits last year.
Yep.
How did you see that, or how did you contribute to that to get those companies ready to sell and really maximize their value?
Yeah. So when we were with for about 4 years before they sold, and we had raised their Series A, and then I believe we did a follow on, and then they did have their exit. So I'll make it sound nice, but as we all know, it's a messy process. They were in the UK, and they had a supplement, their turmeric company. Now that I've given their name, I'll say things that are publicly people know about. But with them for 4 years, the goal in the beginning was scale revenue. So how do we understand the client life cycle, customer life cycle, conversion funnel, growth economics in a way that we can scale revenue while still maintaining cash and bootstrapping. Then it was, as we continue to scale, how do we get the right debt in place? Then as we got into wholesale, it was, now we're doing wholesale. Now we have thousands of doors. How do we afford the payment terms and the lead times? And then we did manufacturing in-house. So then how do we buy machines and equipment, and how do we train the staff? And so there was a lot that went into that over those 4 years. And when we got into the sales process, it was very intense. But we had raised before that, so we had some idea of what it would look like. But we had data rooms. We had to show forecasts down to the unit level by channel, like what SKU was going to sell what in what channel. Like we had to really break things down. It was a very a good valuation and great terms for the founder, who's actually still running the company. But they were purchased by AG Bar, which is a massive beverage conglomerate. So it was a very, very hard process. But we had built something that was well organized. EOS, they were well organized with EOS. We had 2 years of EOS before we sold, I believe, at least. And yeah, we were transparent. We asked for something fair. We gave them the data they needed. We had a lot of stuff prepared. But it was a tough process.
Do you find that there's a threshold that EOS doesn't make sense? Like you get too big and
Yeah.
maybe you're $500 million or something, that EOS just doesn't make sense anymore?
Yeah. So the big thing with EOS for me is it's light at the strategy level. So you nod your head, right? So everybody should, if you don't have something, start with EOS. Start. Just get going. L10s first and then whatever else, but start. When you get to the point where there's maybe diminishing returns just for the incremental growth stuff that you're doing, or where international expansion is an issue, or where you have so many opportunities, you don't know which ones to take, EOS begins to break down a bit. And what I've seen at this level was probably 80 million, roughly approaching 100. The CEO of this company tacked on the playing to win framework, which comes out of the I forget, it was the CEO of P&G. I can't remember exactly, but the framework's called playing to win. Playing to win walks you through who are you going to beat in competitors, in what segment, and what activities, and then what's needed from your management team and your tooling and so on. And it helps you make a lot of these strategic decisions that sit, I would say, above EOS. When you make those big decisions, EOS can then help you get the traction on the decisions. But what I have found is it can be light on strategy. So again, if it's a massive blue ocean, sometimes you need to pick a lane, and EOS won't really help you do that.
Yeah, my friend sold his company last year, same, and he was the EOS, and he said the biggest thing the biggest gap he saw was that strategy piece that he
Yeah.
wished was in there. And if you're doing a self implementation, there's no reason why you shouldn't do that. And I just actually wrote down playing to win just because
Yeah.
just look it up later. But I think that's such great advice and good insights as well. If you are a smaller brand, let's just say you're in that $1 to $10 million, is there some financial habits as a CFO that you would say to build them to 10x, 8x? I'm sorry, they want to 8x what they're doing.
Yep. If I had to pick, the most important thing you should do at that stage is to understand very clearly your conversion funnel, meaning from advertising to impressions to click-through rates to site sessions to add to cart to checkout, all these things, right? And then from there, like LTVs by product and by segment and so on. And the reason I want you to understand those things is because at that level, as you grow, one of those things will either break or will be below average, either your average or industry average. Then you pick the thing that's broken the most and you fix it. And if you do that, you'll see a step change in growth. Let's say it's, for example, I talked to someone today, their funnel suggested that all they had to do was throw more sessions at their website. So for them, the ads are simple: spend more money on advertising. They'll do that. When they do that, something else will break. It could be click-through rate or it could be add to cart rate, but which one it is will show them what to do next. So maybe if it's click-through rate, they need better ads. If it's add to cart rate, they need better landing pages or better product pages. And so if you map your funnel and you monitor it daily, and then bonus, if you can connect that funnel to your budget for the year, So you can see in every month, what am I expecting for impressions and all the way through. You will be able to show yourself what to do when something goes wrong or when you want to capture more opportunity. Like even sometimes you'll see CPM spikes for someone and the agency will have done something with the targeting. It doesn't happen as much anymore. So you can say, oh, go broad or whatever. Um, there one brand I interviewed, who I did an audit for, $40 million clothing brand roughly. They were about to spend 200 grand on a website redesign. And I mapped their conversion funnel for them. And I said, by the way, don't do the design. There's only one piece you have to fix, and that's called their reach checkout rate. If you have Shopify, you'll see this. That reach checkout means someone has added stuff to their cart and they have to go to the checkout page. That was the only part of their funnel that was broken. It was well below their historical average and below industry. So I said, fix that one thing. If you get back to industry average, that's $5 million you're going to make. And that's not going to cost 200 grand. It might cost 25. So as far as I know, I got to follow up with them still, but they've probably saved 150 grand and they'll still capture the benefit of the conversion.
Yeah. And there are great tools too to follow your entire customer journey through your site. And
yes,
there's companies that will tell you where they're dropping out and even
yes.
giving you a real-time warning when they drop out. I think that's,
Mm.
yeah, that's, I mean, very insightful. The company that I run now has human beings that write content. And I think
Cool.
we recognize that there's these like entities out there that are humans and we talk and write and stuff like that. And it's really under siege. The content writing business is under siege by AI. Do you think the financial business is next, and that the CFO role might even be, resigned?
Yeah, I'm
to an
very worried
agent?
about it. I'll be honest with you, I'm quite worried about it. And one of the reasons, if I show you my screen, I have 10 Cloud Code terminals open, is because if I'm just very, very honest, like I'm operating a bit out of fear and I'm trying to work very, very quickly. I'm working very, very hard because the basics of what a CFO will do is going to be automated in a year. So the work that I do for brands that are sub 5 million, they'll be able to do it themselves in a year, probably. So what we're doing as a company is there's still a human side that will be around for a number of years, which is where we are setting a path, but also aligning the humans in a company around a path. And that I think is going to be around for quite a bit longer. So we are working a bit more on that side of things as well.
I find that when you decide you're going to use AI and then you give it a model that we talked about this, there's slippage. It's not always consistent. And I think that language is, we can argue about this, but language is more complicated than accounting, right? Accounting is complicated, but accounting is very binary as well. There's not a lot of gray. There's some gray areas in tax, but maybe in accounting, it's usually a 1 or a 0, right?
Yeah,
But
often, yeah.
with language, it's subjective when you want to use too many adverbs or all the different signs in language now that AI has captured. Moving a lot of that to automations through AI, and I guess too, to be clear, automations in AI is not machine learning. It's large language models that are doing things like a human, not necessarily always with an if-then statement or a code, a hard gate to get through. And sometimes, like even when you do develop gates, let's just say, I don't want any checks to go out that are more than $10,000. Claude may wake up in the morning and decide, today's the day I'm letting this check go through because I don't know, I just don't feel like it. Or you're right. You're absolutely right. You're fair to give me pushback on that. There's a big risk in having governance over to an AI. What's your views on that right now? And do you think it's going to, obviously it's going to get better, but should people always trust it?
Well, so we are actively trying to build stuff that will do what you're talking about, run payments and things. But the way that I would do it is to treat AI like any other employee. And the best financial operating systems have gates. So, for example, when I have bookkeepers working for somebody, they're not allowed to send money out of the bank, out of a client account without an approval. What does that mean? Well, it means my bookkeeper will load the payment into Ramp or whatever, but the payment can't go out until the founder or whoever's in charge clicks the approve button. So you have to be the same with your AIs because AI isn't going to steal from you because its kid is sick and so on, but it's going to wake up and It's going to read the system prompt, but it's going to not read the back half of it for some reason, because they do this, right? And then it's going to go, oh shoot, I didn't see the gate. I'm so sorry. Well, don't be in a position where the AI has to say sorry to you. Set up the guardrails the way you would for a person that could steal from you if they had the inclination and the opportunity. If you do that, you'll be mostly fine. You're still going to get situations where the AI does the bookkeeping and it puts something in the wrong account or misread this number or whatever, right? But so can a person. It will get better over time. But right now, like you'll have seen this in your work. Sometimes AI will read the first half of a system prompt and not the back half, or skip the middle, and it's like, why did you miss it? And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot to read that part. Like a human would, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing. Just set up the controls properly.
One thing I've done is I have a violation log, and I started it because every once in a
Cool.
while it would just deploy for me, and I was like, it usually was in when you're testing, it would then suddenly trigger a deployment because you've said, yeah, it works in testing, or let me test this again, and then it'll come back, fix it, and then deploy. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. You can't deploy to production without me. I want to deploy to production. So what it's helped me to do is categorize things that are happening, and then maybe move that gate up when you have to have it move
Yeah.
up. And I've definitely I did get an auto deployment this morning, and it was in that exact same situation, but it's happened instead of every 2 or 3 days now. It
Mm-hmm.
happens once a quarter, and I think
Cool.
that as long as you can keep track of and then categorize, I call them violations, the better it's going to be for what you're doing. And
Totally.
I think that having that human gate is probably your best bet.
Well, I mean, so we're doing a ton of development right now, but I have a software engineer on staff, and the closer my apps get to like production status, the more he reviews the AI sort of bolt-on PRs, they're called, but like the more he reviews the PRs to make sure that they're okay. You can also, if you ever heard of test-driven development, TDD, you can ask your AIs to write tests so that every time they create a new commit or PR, it runs all the old tests so you can be assured that things aren't going to break in new ways. That's something that we've even done. We've done it for copywriting as well, and website development as well.
Yeah, and I use Playwright, and I've recently
Cool.
just discovered Claude in Chrome, which is such a
Yeah.
great way to just do a quick
Totally.
validation of something. And even on simple things like our content website, I have it go and look at our key landing pages to
Yeah.
make sure that they exist and the content is still there,
Hmm.
and all those things. You spent some time running a metal recycling plant.
I did. Yeah.
Tell us about that. That's super
Oh,
interesting.
it's so
And
funny.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that was my first like real job. I was 19, and I had thought I wanted to be a doctor, and I'd taken my first year of pre-med, and I was like, ah, no way. And I dropped out of university. I went to work at this metal recycling place, and it was a grind, I tell you. But I very quickly became supervisor and manager in the plant, and I was managing people that were in their 40s and whatever, and some ex-convicts and whatnot. You know how it goes, metal recycling. And I learned that I really enjoyed managing. I really enjoyed problem solving. I was actually very good at it as well. I enjoyed working with people and managing and all that. And it was sort of my first foray into business, I guess. And I was there for almost 10 years. But throughout the time there, I learned a ton. With metal recycling, you have to look at commodities and futures and what do you buy from the client and how do you sell it then for a profit. And so I learned a lot about all that. Learned a lot about managing people, a lot about process. I learned to weld. I can operate an excavator and a bobcats and weld and all these things. And yeah, it was tough. It was very hard, a hard job, hard physically, but I'm actually still connected with the owners of that company.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Is
it's so
is
weird.
there something that you learned out of that that's really helped you besides the management that's helped you in the financial side?
Man, you know, the one thing that those guys did is when 2008 the whole meltdown happened, I was working there, and they didn't have to do any layoffs, and a lot of people did, and they had, I guess they'd saved up some reserve or something to enable them to withstand that very strange time period. And I think that's one thing I've learned is try to have a reserve, a nest egg, if you will. Not always possible. but if you can do it, and I think the other thing, less financial, but maybe operational, is they were very, very service forward. So they overserved their clients. And I think that's a big thing I've taken with me is if you provide really great service, you can be at the top end of the market.
Yeah, over deliver, under promise. No,
Yeah.
under promise. That's I think I got it right there. A year ago, I went to the Global Leadership Conference for EO, and all
Cool.
the talk was tariffs, and especially in CPG,
Yeah.
depending on where you source it. Are you seeing some of that kind of die down now, and the whole stress that it put on entrepreneurs, that stress is somewhat subsiding?
Well, there was the initial short-term stress of this new thing happening and trying to figure it all out. And then we didn't talk about it a ton. And then refunds have revitalized the topic. So people are talking about that. But some of my clients are getting multi six-figure refunds back, which is great. But also that apparently the government's enacted a new program of tariffs. Maybe they're called something different because the old version was deemed illegal. So they're still around. And so we're still discussing them. People aren't freaking out as much. But yeah, I mean, credit to entrepreneurs generally. There's a shock to the system, and then we all just figure out how to go forward anyway. I mean, but yeah, we're still managing that. There's still lots of it going on.
Yeah, I mean, credit to my friend built a business or he pivoted his business into going to LATAM and helping custom companies automate their production lines.
Cool.
So and he targeted low tariff countries to help them. And at the end of the day, they're going to have a more productive production line, right? So it's like a win-win for everybody.
Totally.
What I mean, you're in Canada, right? Is it? I would imagine that it's a little bit different, but you're very dependent on the U.S. for a
Yep.
lot of things. Do you see a difference in the maybe the trading behavior on some of your brands, or most of your brands in the U.S.?
I would say most of our brands are in the US currently. We have a bunch in Australia, but and in Canada too. No, there's no difference in trading behavior just because everybody wants to sell in US dollars if you can. So I haven't seen a major difference there. If anything, people are trying to penetrate the US more. That's what I see from Europe, from Australia, from Canada, is people are trying to get it, it's the biggest market in the world, I think. So that everyone's trying to get in. And in as much as we may complain, it's still the biggest market in the world.
You had mentioned QuickBooks and some other financial systems earlier. If you're setting up a website, like say you're on Shopify, you're connecting all these different systems. Which one do you wish you would have connected first? After you've done it 6 months later or whatever. Which one is it that you should have done first instead of waiting?
Is this for someone who's setting up the first time?
Yeah, or you have your Shopify set up and you have your fulfillment set up, but
Okay.
something
Oh,
that
good
you
question.
wish you would have done
Man.
in the first place.
This is a good question. I would say the thing. Okay, I'll answer by saying it this way. What I still find to be the most common mistake and the hardest mistake to fix is launching new products, but then not killing them if they don't perform. So there isn't really like a specific system that tells you to kill bad SKUs, but that is the process that I wish everyone would have earlier in their journey, because it's the by and large the most common mistake that people are still making time and time again, even after now being 6 years working with ecom brands. A lot of other things got better. This is still the worst one. So you'll launch a new product, which as an owner you love your new products. They're like your little babies, and when they don't perform, you don't want to kill them because they're your little babies. And so you're still managing the SKU, you're still putting it in 3PLs, you're still managing safety stock for that SKU and pick and pack and recounting and all this. Where if you just kill it, you'll be better off. But people hate killing SKUs. And they still do. Even companies that are multi 8 figures, high 8 figures, they hate killing SKUs. Yeah, that's the toughest one.
Yeah, my cousin is the new brand director for, or the emerging or whatever brand director for Perfetti. They make Mentos, and whenever we're out together, and we both run marathons, so we often
Yeah,
will travel together. He makes me go to Target or to Dollar Tree, and he'll look where it's positioned in retail, like, oh, that these are should be on the top shelf. Do you feel
yeah,
like as an owner or as a brand director or whatever, you have to have that extra passion to drag your cousin along into a retail store to see where your brand is sitting?
that's pretty cool.
And what, how much of a, like, from a CPG standpoint, where it sits in retail, does it have a big relationship where it sits in digital?
Well, retail, we love retail when you can get in. Absolutely. I think if you have a type of product that could succeed in retail, you should try to get into it. The timing is important because if you try to get in and you don't sell through, you get kicked out and you don't get another chance, or not always. So if you can build attention and then you can get a shot at retail, take it. People hate the idea of like keystone pricing where you have to knock your price down by half and give it to a retailer. They hate the idea of payment terms, but I will tell you, almost without fail, the brands that tack retail on to their ecom do more money and profit. Yes, managing cash gets hard, but you're more profitable. You're taken more seriously. Banks take you more seriously. You do make more money, more contribution margin, all of it. So we love retail, but if you do it too early, you can't get sell through. They're going to kick you out. So you have to be careful when you start.
Yeah, I've had more. I've interviewed a number of brands, even brands that maybe they got misplaced inside the store. So
Mm.
I can't remember what the product was, but he was in Walmart and he was in the wrong
Yeah,
section, and it
yeah,
was, the Walmart didn't quite know where to put him, and he could
yeah,
never. It took him a long time to say, no, this should be an automotive, or rather than
yeah,
what, I don't know what I'm just making that part up, but kind of that follow through and making sure you're in the right place. And then once you get into a rhythm, you're really positioned in a good space. Is there any big box that makes sense as a friendly place for the first place to test it?
Oh, well, I'm not sure if I can answer that. I think I've seen good launches in grocery, in Target, in Walmart, in Costco. And when I say grocery, I mean Kroger, Publix, Wegmans. Like I've seen great launches in all those. So I don't. I can't prescribe one. I will say drug and convenience is a very difficult play. So you have to be careful if you're approached by them. And the reason I say that is because I worked with a company who we were approached by CVS with a massive, massive initial order, like multi 7-figure initial order. And our board told us to stay away, just because sell through is not great. And then they send your stuff back. So be careful about those. Beyond that, though, I think it's product dependent. Um, if you're approached by one, you just need to do some research and talk to some people in industry. But it's probably product dependent, I think.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought always comes to Costco because I'm a big Costco fan, and
Yeah,
like I said, I live most of the time in Hawaii, and it's great to get local brands, especially
yeah,
in Hawaii and Costco. And every time I travel, it seems like there's a little section that has local in it, so you can sort of get a flavor of what the
yeah.
local town is like. Uh, Matt, what sort of things are you seeing on the horizons that people should be aware of, and especially around the CFO role, and where you're seeing some trends happening, and what are we looking for H2 now this year?
Well, let's see. In terms of CFO stuff, I think it's sort of steady as she goes. We're growing, which is we're lucky. But the work isn't changing a ton. I mean, what we're trying to do is do more for the same with AI. So just give more value, be more communicative, give more data, more background. But the work is still the same. Part of that is because if you're non-financial, you're not sure if what Claude gives you is actually right or not. So we still have a job today. In terms of consumer goods, the one thing is a struggle today, which since 2022 has been a struggle, is debt financing. And so I always want to caution people just to try to find the right financing for you. But more and more people are coming out with more and more options these days. So just make sure you understand the market there. Um, yeah, I think the AI CFO solutions, we're seeing more of those come out. I think you should test them. If you don't have a CFO, if you think you might need one, there's no harm in testing. Like Iris is a good one. But yeah, I don't know.
All right. Um, I as we close up the podcast, to give everybody a chance to do a shameless plug about
Oh,
anything
sure.
they'd like. What Matt, what would you like to plug today?
What would I like to plug? You know what I'll say is we have a research team. And so we are writing a lot of content, AI assisted, of course, but we're writing a ton of content. Um, and I think that for the consumer brands, you'll get a lot of value from looking at our blog and we've made a chatbot on our site that has our corpus of writing embedded inside of it. I think if you have questions about e-commerce, if you go to our blog, eightx.co/blog, you can find considered researched answers to a lot of your questions. And our chatbot will help guide you to the right articles if you want. So I would say check that out. We are putting a ton of effort and a ton of money and a ton of time into writing very high quality, considered researched content.
That's awesome. I was double down on the plug on research content. That's what we do for a living, and I
Oh,
think
cool.
that
Okay. Amazing.
yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing. I think, well, definitely, that's one thing that AI is not going to replace in the short term is the long form research content, and a
Yeah.
lot of it, because it is so complicated and there's so many different pieces that I don't think AI is ever going to understand what a human wants, and maybe
Yeah.
it does at some point, but then like it's only going to decide what everybody else wanted last year. So yeah, I'll second you on that. And
Yep.
yeah, one last question. So I watched a lot of soccer. Who plays in that fantastic looking stadium in Vancouver now? Is it CFL or who's in there? And does Vancouver have a pro team for pro
Yeah,
MLS
we
team?
do. We're called the Vancouver Whitecaps.
All right.
There's a lot of controversy right now about whether they're going to stay here or go to Vegas because
Oh
our
God.
government, our local government owns the stadium and stuff. So we don't want them to leave because we want a pathway for our kids out here. But they're called the Vancouver Whitecaps. We've had season tickets for 3 years. We take my kids all the time. I love it. Yeah, it's a great place.
Yeah, we have Minnesota United is
Of
my
course.
Minnesota team, the Loons. They have such a great stadium. It is packed all the time. I hate just give Las Vegas a new one. Like,
I know.
a year.
There's enough people that want to play and enough people that want to watch that we could all have a team. Our government just needs to be smart about what they
Yeah.
do with the stadium and not make it hard for the owners to stay here. But like Antoine Griezmann's coming to it. I don't know if it's Minneapolis, but I can't remember. But Griezmann is going to be in the MLS next year. So like
Okay.
we're going to
Yeah.
keep getting these marquee players.
Minnesota will be one of the last ones to get a marquee player, but we're never very good in the sports business. Matt Putra, it's Putra, sorry. It's been such a fantastic conversation. Thank
Yeah,
you so
thank you.
much. Very much enjoyed it. How would people get in touch with you?
eightx.co, best place. We have buttons that say talk to a CFO. If you want to talk to me, that's the best one. We have a contact form. I see it instantly. Yeah, easiest place to get a hold of me for sure.
All right. Matt Putra is the managing or partner with eightX. Thank you so much for being here today.
This was so nice. Thank you.